Welcome in, Slumpbusters. It is time for a very special WrestleMania edition of the Slumpbuster. Slumpbuster, episode 91 to be exact. I'm your host, Ju-Ju Talk Sports, and join me on today's podcast, a familiar pod but a new guest. I have Jacob from Art and Jacob Do America to break down all things WWE, WrestleMania, and sports entertainment as a whole. But before we do that, folks, it's time to give a shout out to our partners. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Blue Chew is making waves and bringing more confidence to the bedrooms. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets combat all forms of ED and can help men gain extra confidence for when it's time to perform. Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting line at the pharmacy, and it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. Blue Chew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredients and strength for your prescription. Don't like swallowing pills? No problem here. Blue Chew's sildenafil and tadalafil tablets are chewable. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and they prepare and ship direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy. So if you could benefit from a little extra confidence in the bedroom for when it's time to perform, visit Blue Chew for more details and important safety information. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code SLUMP at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code SLUMP to receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the Slumpbuster. Our next partner, a long timer, one that we always love to talk about on the podcast. Yes, I am talking about Manscaped.com. Manscaped provides the perfect tools for your family jewels. Manscaped is forever changing the grooming game with their Perfect Package 3.0. The number one in below the waist grooming. The Perfect Package 3.0 kit comes with the new improved Lawnmower 3.0, waterproof cordless body trimmer, and a ton of other liquid formulations to round out your grooming routine. Their third generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology pioneered by Manscaped. Not only does Manscaped obsess over technology development to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience, but they use the best ingredients in their formulations. Inside the Perfect Package, you'll also find the Manscaped Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. If you want to look your best, smell your best, Manscaped.com provides the products just for you. Get 20% off and free shipping and handling with the promo code SLUMP at Manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping and handling at Manscaped.com and use promo code SLUMP. And lastly, it's time to give a shout out to CavemanCoffeeCo.com, an Albuquerque, New Mexico based product. We're from Albuquerque, New Mexico. We can tell you we only provide the best. Talking about their best, their cold brew coffees are delicious. They give you that boost, and I can't recommend them enough. Speaking of stuff I can't recommend enough, have you tried their Mammoth Blend? This thing gives you a kick of energy in the morning and the perfect way to start your day. But if you're looking for something a little bit more light, let's say you just want to refresh yourself, how about trying one of their hibiscus teas? Delicious, sensational. These products, I can't speak highly about them enough, but they can be yours if you use promo code SLUMP at checkout to save yourself 15% off your next purchase. Yes, promo code SLUMP at CavemanCoffeeCo.com. I guess the point of this, folks, use promo code SLUMP. Don't be a chump. Save yourself a whole lot of money, whether that be BlueChew.com, Manscaped.com, or CavemanCoffeeCo.com. Thank you to our partners. All right, guys, it's time for the episode. Ju-Ju and Jacob Talk WrestleMania, episode 91. Hashtag Bust the Slump. Enjoy. Welcome in, Slumpbusters. It is time for episode 91 of the Slumpbuster podcast. I'm your host, Ju-Ju Talk Sports. The path to our 100th episode is in sight, but we have to go on the road to WrestleMania to get there. WrestleMania 37 is this weekend, and we've been talking about this one for a while with my current guest, Mr. Jacob Pixton of Art and Jacob Do America. No Art on this one. You've heard Art before. Go ahead and check him out. Check out all his social media channels. But Jacob, welcome into the Slumpbuster.
Hey, man, how you doing? It's a pleasure to be on your show. I know you did our show a couple of months back. We discussed the NFL season and whatnot, so it's a pleasure to finally be on your show.
Yeah, you were one of the early inspirations behind me saying, we got to get this background figured out. We got to get everything set up here. Now I think we're starting to get on pace with you. We're starting to look like real YouTubers at the moment.
There you go. Yeah, it looks good, man. I love what you did right there. I mean, I don't like the teams necessarily,
Oh,
as you can see
okay.
behind
Taking
me.
shots here, huh?
Yeah, it's all good though. It's all love. It's and nothing personal.
The ironic thing about this one is I have a California team in my background and I live in Texas while you got a Texas team in your background and you live in Cali.
It's the weirdest thing, right? Like I should have what your teams listed up. The opposite should be going on basically.
Or you could just do like every other Californian and just move to Texas anyway, because that's what y'all are doing, right? Come on.
Like the great Bill Burr said, only one of those motherfuckers out there has $100 million. So no, I'm staying right here.
Actually, technically like $300 million. Where's that Spotify
probably.
deal coming in? I'm just saying, Spotify, drop in those DMs. We're still looking at you. 100th episode coming in soon. Be big for the channel. I'm just saying. But so Jacob, obviously we've been talking about doing like a wrestling episode for a while. And I know some people in the sports community would give me a little bit of shit because, oh, wrestling, that's fake. Come on, what are you guys doing? But you know what? It's sports adjacent. It's good enough for me. It's still real to me, damn it.
I feel you on that. Like I have friends, they still give me shit about the whole CM Punk thing that happened like 5 years ago, where you went to the UFC and lost badly. And I'm just like, bro, like it was worth seeing, because I mean that's the whole allure of sports entertainment, is you get to see, what would happen, if they go into like a real arena. Brock Lesnar's case, he totally dominated. He ended up being the UFC World Heavyweight Champion, until he gets stopped by the future GOAT of the UFC's heavyweight division, until Stipe came along, and then now Francis Ngannou. But it's one of those things where you got to suspend reality. I mean, everybody likes a good Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Everybody likes a good Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. So it's just like, why not? Those people in the ring, they're actually doing something. They're performing, something very physically grueling that not many people on this earth can do. And even, super athletes like Lawrence Taylor, for example, this is a WrestleMania episode. He was in a WrestleMania. And I got to say, I mean, he's probably the best defensive end of all time, maybe. And he kind of looked whatever in the ring. So not everybody can do it. That's what I'm trying to say. So sports, entertainment, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and honestly, too, whenever we throw out the word fake, come on, guys, think about it this way. You watch movies, you watch TV shows, you're able to understand that the Avengers aren't really fighting to save the planet. I think you can understand that we're just, indulging in these storylines, these larger than life characters, these personalities that have come about. And wrestling has had some fun moments over the years. I know we have a react portion to our channel too, and I've been sending C Money a lot of like the great wrestling promos from back in the day. Like if you ever just want a good time, Macho Man, Randy Savage, cream of the crop. Where does he keep getting these creams, man? Like he's just pulling them out of nowhere.
Yeah, the catering.
It's like an RKO with that cream, just like
out of nowhere.
Cream always rises to the crop, brother. Or it rises to the top. I don't know. Whatever. But either way, it just tells you those 80s cocaine binges in wrestling that were fantastic and great for our entertainment's sake.
Have you ever seen the YouTube video of Macho Man, where it's all of his promos from the 80s, from the cocaine era? And it's like a lot of, because it all starts off like that, like, ooh, yeah. And then like they just capture all of the like sniffs. So it's just like, I think it actually says something about like the cocaine era of like WWF. And it's the most hilarious thing ever, because just him getting ready to like go full on, Macho Man.
I can see him doing the, oh, yeah, right after doing a bump. I think that would be the absolute like perfect reaction to doing a bump of cocaine.
Because that's his real voice. Like a lot of people don't understand that. Like he wasn't playing a character. In a sense, he wasn't really, walking around with I don't know, maybe he was, I don't know, in Sarasota, Florida, with a bedazzled, cowboy hat and, streamers coming up. But that very much was him. Like everybody you talk to, like Kevin Nash or Ric Flair, anybody that, knew him like in WCW or, WF times, that was his real persona. And I believe before wrestling, he was actually drafted to the Cincinnati Reds. And this is before, he had the beard or anything like that. Look up those pictures. That is interesting as shit. And I wonder if if he never got cut from the Reds or whatever happened in that situation, what those interviews would be like, down the road. And let's say he became like a manager and he goes out there and he's like yelling at an umpire like, yeah, let me tell you something, okay, yeah, that second baseman did not tag him out, yeah, and then he just flies off the top of the dugout and hits that umpire with a flying elbow. That would just be the most beautiful thing.
I feel like that's a skit that someone needs to capitalize on now. You've given me inspiration, Jacob. We gotta make that happen. We gotta make that magic happen. As far as Macho Man, though, and you're saying that that's his real life character, that also could be if a lot of those old school guys, because they didn't want to break kayfabe, they would commit so heavily into their characters. Like, look at The Undertaker. 20, 30 years of keeping up that Undertaker persona, never doing interviews, never doing podcasts. The only time he ever really broke character for a moment was when Ric Flair retired and he gave him his flowers. But other than that, he was the dead man for 20, 30 years. And now that he's in retirement, at least we think, and we hope so, I hope so, for his sake.
Yeah.
Now he's just out there. He's just enjoying life. So it just tells you how committed to the characters that a lot of those old school guys were.
Yeah, and that's another, for anybody listening out there that's not a fan of wrestling or used to be a fan and no longer is because Stone Cold doesn't wrestle anymore or The Rock doesn't wrestle anymore. It's one of those things where we admire, to make the acting analogy, where we admire people like Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, or Tom Cruise, like, or Robert De Niro, to give a better example. These method actors where they live the character as them. Heath Ledger, perfect example. He was the Joker. He died because of it. And a lot of wrestlers do die living the gimmick. So it's just like it's another thing to think about. Like when you say fake, I mean, these guys are literally putting their whole being into what they are. It might be something silly, like the gobbledygooker or whatever, but goddamn it, for as long as he's that character, he is the gobbledygooker.
It's funny that you actually mentioned the gobbledygooker after talking about Undertaker, because I was listening to a lot of his recent interviews and he thought he was going to be the gobbledygooker. Yeah. He thought he was going to come out of that egg on Survivor Series. And it's so much of a relief. So the Undertaker was my guy. And that's what's going to be interesting with this being a WrestleMania episode and not seeing the Undertaker out there, to see him do these interviews and talk about his journey in wrestling and how he's been keeping it up for the last few years. Did you enjoy the Last Ride series they did?
Absolutely loved it. I mean, it's one of those things, it's the last joy that you get because he's the last person, to break the walls down, to use a word from Chris Jericho, where, there's so many podcasts out there. There's Stone Cold's podcast where you get to know the real Steve Austin or Steve Williams. You get to know the real Jim Ross. You get to know all these people, and then they all do, interviews for each other. So you get to know all these people. So you start to care for them as individuals. And then the Undertaker, he's just always been this enigma, just this silent zombie, basically, or the silent, biker, depending on what his character is, that year. But to finally get to know who he is and realize like, oh, wow, he's a legit dude. He's not just some asshole. They're like, oh, it doesn't kill you. Like, that saying, like, never meet your heroes. It's like, I'm glad I got to meet finally who Mark Calloway is, because he's a really legit guy. And then when you hear like his stories of him just training for a whole year just to lead up to WrestleMania, where his body is just breaking down, it's just for our entertainment. It's like the most beautiful thing to see. So I really enjoyed the Last Ride, and I'm so glad that he got to retire on his terms, and kind of the way WrestleMania panned out last year with the COVID virus, and it was supposed to be at Raymond James Arena or Stadium. And, it didn't end up being it, but they had that whole, theatrical match with AJ Styles. It worked out perfect for that character because, yeah, AJ Styles is currently probably the best or second best in-ring performer, but it's going to take a whole hell of a performance to, carry someone like The Undertaker, who's 6'10", let's be honest, he's not 7 feet, but 300 pounds, like to try to carry him to a match that he would be satisfied. And we would probably see him this year hurt himself again, but that theatrical way that they did, his last match with AJ Styles was perfect because it was just everything you wanted to see from the Undertaker character. You don't need to see the Undertaker fly over the top rope anymore. You don't need to see him, balance and do that whole arm, thing, old school, I guess it's called, or, the gates of hell or tombstone. You don't need to really see that anymore. You just want to see the outside stuff, the stuff that made the Undertaker special, which you got to see with AJ Styles, and everything about, the Last Ride and everything that encompassed it was beautiful.
it's funny watching that, how he's just chasing that perfect match, that perfect send off. And you're correct in saying that, yeah, the fact that his body was limiting so much, I think it would have been impossible for him to do an actual match in live in ring with stadium packed to the gills. I think it was important for them to actually have to do that theatrical one to work around his limitations and to still give proper respect to the character, allow him to do those fantastical things that we come to expect and love of the Undertaker, and even mixing in elements of the American Badass and that transition of him being human, allowing him to become human in our eyes again. So it isn't weird whenever he's on podcast. So it isn't weird when he's doing an interview, that we can have him potentially do a proper Hall of Fame speech.
This is a message brought to you by the Foundation for a Perfect Package.
Why do I need Manscaped?
Why do I need Manscaped?
Why do I need Manscaped?
Because the only frill I want is the one up top.
Because being in a relationship is not an excuse to be lazy.
Because I like talking ball, not smelling like them.
Because deforestation is proven to prevent forest fires.
Manscaped is the only brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming.
Manscaped's Crop Preserver guarantees that you smell your best all day long.
Manscaped Boxer Briefs are the most comfortable underwear on the market.
Manscaped's advanced skincare technology makes nicks a thing of the past.
Manscaped is the #1 in men's grooming. Subscribers get 2 free blade refills every 3 months. Get 20% off plus free shipping and handling with the promo code SLUMP at manscaped.com. That's the promo code SLUMP at manscaped.com. Get your Lawnmower 3.0 today.
We are the Slumpbusters.
And we approve this message.
I'm going to get into the Hall of Fame now. I just pulled up the class coming in this year. So they're going to do 2 Hall of Fame classes because they didn't get a proper opportunity to induct the 2020 class. The 2020 is going to be John Bradshaw Layfield, the Bella Twins, Jushin Thunder Liger, international wrestler, didn't really get much shine in the WWE, but it's cool that they give him some love. Yeah. The N.W.O is going in as a stable. A British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, so post-mortem induction there. William Shatner is going into the celebrity wing. And then Titus O'Neil gets the Warrior Award, which I'd actually have to look into that myself. Anyone from the 2020 draft class or 2020 Hall of Fame class that you want to key in on there?
We'll just start there with the Warrior Award with Titus O'Neil. I just barely saw that this morning myself. I don't think they've announced it yet on we're recording this on Monday afternoon, I believe, in about an hour. That's when Raw comes on the Eastern front. But I saw that and it kind of took me by surprise because Titus O'Neil, for, again, anybody that doesn't know wrestling, he's kind of a jobber. He's not seen on TV much. And then when he is, it's kind of a joke. And there was an incident that happened, a few years ago where they were doing something like a birthday party, let's say for Bailey or something like where everybody was like, on the ramp and, Mr. McMahon was out there and, Stephanie and, Hunter, they were all out there. And, Titus, being the happy, joyous guy he is, towards the end, like when the credits were up or whatever, he goes up to, Vince and kind of gives him like a little shake, like, hey Vince, just like you see your buddy, whatever, and like you kind of, instead of giving like a handshake or something, you just shake him, it's like out of love, right? And well, I guess Vince didn't appreciate that because that was live on television. You don't shake the boss, unless it's in the script. And so I guess he got suspended for like 30 days or something really outrageous, and without pay and whatnot. And he's best friends with Batista, and Batista would have been like, I would have asked for my release right then and there, like, you just demasculated me basically for everybody, because WWE, they announced it, Titus O'Neil is going to be on a 30-day suspension, due to assaulting the chairman of the board and whatnot. It's a very embarrassing moment, and he's just the nicest guy and whatnot. And he just kind of just like, what, I should have known better as a professional not to do that on TV. Even though everybody was siding with Titus, it was like, dude, that's absolutely wrong. It makes you hate the man Vince McMahon even more. And since then, had the opportunities to leave, WWE, jump ship, go to AEW, or even go to New Japan. He's actually a former, football player. He's had multiple opportunities, coaching opportunities, in the real sports, world. He's very well spoken. He's had many opportunities to be, like Shannon Sharp, but more articulate, and be on, some kind of, program like that. Many opportunities. Hollywood's out there. Like I said, he's best friends with Dave Bautista, who's, right underneath the Rock, former WWE alums that are in Hollywood now. I mean, there's opportunities there. Like, it just seems like, the world is his oyster, but he stayed loyal to the company. And oh yeah, by the way, he's an outstanding father. He has 2 sons. When you look at his Instagram, it's just like he's doing this, that, and he's very involved, in their lives. And I know this is going to sound awkward, this Snow White looking dude right here, trying to copy, make a comment, on African-American, a person or whatever, but African-American fans of the WWE, they're going to see that. And he's just this solid role model of what a father should be, what a person should be, what a man should be. And it's going to be interesting. This is just what I know, of this quote unquote jobber, right? Where I just like, well, I have a lot of respect for him. So it'd be interesting to hear exactly why he's getting it, what charities he's involved with or not. Because when I'm just thinking just off of the top of my head, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, he does deserve the Warrior Award, which for anybody who doesn't know what the Warrior Award is for, is when the Ultimate Warrior was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame a couple of years back. He was going on this rant as the Warrior would do, saying that there needs to be some kind of award for, people in the back that you don't see, people that, make a difference behind the scenes that deserve, just as much glory as we do, the performers. And, passed away literally like 2 days later, after being inducted. And since then, Dana Warrior, she, gets presented every year, at the WWE Hall of Fame, presents somebody with the Warrior Award. So it's always somebody, that does something outstanding in their community, or, does something pretty righteous. I'm for it. I'm for Titus O'Neil getting this award.
One interesting induction in that 2020 class that stands out to me is N.W.O. And this kind of plays into the 2021 class as well, because Eric Bischoff is part of that class. So WCW is getting some love in this year's induction ceremony. And you would argue between Eric Bischoff and the N.W.O., these were some guys that almost drove the WWE out of business.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see those rivalries set aside. Obviously, Eric Bischoff has been in and out of WWE over the years anyway. Hulk Hogan in and out of WWE over the years anyway. So it's not unusual to see these guys. It's not like they've had like a Bret Hart style reunion, but the fact that they can set aside personal like vendettas and have this Hall of Fame induction for these guys, because we mentioned it with the Jushin Thunder Liger one, the WWE Hall of Fame class is really just a pro wrestling Hall of Fame as a whole. It's not just strictly biased to whether or not you contributed to the WWE. And I think most people associate the WWE as pro wrestling, regardless of there being an AEW, a TNA, a Ring of Honor. The WWE is its own brand. It's the NFL of the sport as a whole.
It's the gold standard, yes.
Exactly, the gold standard there. So it's cool to see those guys get some love. I like this 21 class. It has a little bit more headliners than the 2020 class, because you also have Kane, Rob Van Dam, The Great Khali, and Molly Holly. The Great Khali, obviously, that's going to be huge for them. The WWE has prioritized really expanding their base in India. And a lot of people had questions of the Great Khali even having a title run. Obviously, he's kind of a slow, stiff performer, not the most entertaining guy to watch. But for them, in the Indian market, it really expanded their influence. And a lot of people really do find inspiration in the Great Khali. Rob Van Dam, it's a shame, obviously, that one of his best title runs, one of his best runs in the industry was cut short because of his own personal life. But, Rob Van Dam, here we are, 2021, gained his proper induction. And then, as I mentioned and alluded to when we got into the Hall of Fame class, so the fact that the Undertaker is finally human again couldn't have come at a more perfect time, because if he has the opportunity to induct his brother of destruction, Mayor Kane, I wonder what kind of Kane we're going to get at this Hall of Fame induction. Is it going to be Mayor Kane, the mayor of Knoxville County, or is it going to be the Big Red Machine?
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see. And I really do hope that it is Taker that inducts him. I mean, it would only seem right. It was like when Paul Bear went into the Hall of Fame, Kane was the one that, inducted him. Their dad, quote unquote. He inducted him, and then Taker came out and did the whole thing, afterwards, still in character at the Hall of Fame. But I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, it's more of a formal event, so I can probably see, Mayor Kane or Corporate Kane coming out, in a suit and tie, from, the big and tall store or whatever. But if he came out like in the old school mask with the long hair, like that would be awesome as well too. And then he just kind of takes it off, maybe sets it down like on the podium. Like that would be a cool look as well.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the 2021 class as a whole?
You hit it on the head with the Great Khali thing. I mean, I laughed at that just because, me and my girlfriend, trying to get her to watch, wrestling or whatever. Like she always like jokes that the Great Khali is her favorite wrestler. And I told her at one point, I said, yeah, back in India, he's a big deal because he used to be a porn star. He was the biggest porn star, both figuratively and literally. And so we always got a kick out of that. So anytime we hear like the Great Khali, like that, I always think of that. But you hit the nail on the head with that it's a move that, they're trying to move into a market that has 1 billion people there. And, it's just like when Jinder Mahal was the WWE champion, they had a whole tour that was over there in India. And so they really needed, an Indian champion, some kind of representation, to show them like, hey, like to sell them, the network, to sell them the TV rights and whatnot. Just be like, hey, we have these individuals you can aspire to be on TV. So, I mean, it is important business wise to have that. Now on paper,
it's hard for us American fans to understand it because when we look at the performers themselves, whether it be the Great Khali, who was dry, stiff, hard to move around in the ring. And basically no one enjoyed working with the Great Khali when you hear a lot of shoot interviews. Yeah. And then you talk about Jinder Mahal. Now, Jinder Mahal built like a complete athlete. I won't take that away from the guy. He looks like a stud. But the problem for him, I've never gotten into a Jinder Mahal promo. Anytime I do see him on TV, I do want to change the channel.
Yeah.
He's not the most charismatic guy in the world. So you would like, if we do have continued influence in India, that we do have a true Indian superstar come through the ranks. We haven't really seen that yet, like the complete package.
Right.
I think we've seen elements of it with obviously the Great Khali, his impressive stature, but the lack thereof of the ability to cut a promo was always going to be a hindrance to his development overall. But here he is in the Hall of Fame anyway, so I guess it worked out for him. But Jinder Mahal, it's just missing that extra charisma to truly take him over the top.
The it factor.
Yeah, that it factor. And I think the fact that even his title runs, they were just horrible ratings lows for the WWE. And I think that's why you get pressure to move the title off of them. And now we're at this point. I think, too, this is one thing typical that every wrestling podcast I ever listened to growing up, little complaints about the industry and everything, allowing new talent to grow and expand within the industry. Yeah. Now we're looking at a WrestleMania card that is going to be highlighted by some old school guys and some people that maybe people don't really agree with. The main event of night 2 appears to be Roman Reigns, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. I'm actually rocking my Edge shirt here on the pod today.
And I got
going back to the mid 2000s, the rated R superstar himself. Daniel Bryan in there, that's a good little mix. I think a lot of people, though, would look at that Roman Reigns element for it and kind of like roll their eyes back. Where are you at on Roman Reigns as a character, as a performer? Because I know the guy gets a lot of heat for being the cookie cutter model.
So here's the thing. Obviously, he's a part of the world famous, N.W.O family, which, includes The Rock, which includes Yokozuna, which includes, the Head Shrinkers, the Wild Samoans, just a long lineage of just, great athletes that have come through and made Vince millions, if not billions of dollars, right? It's only proper is that, the head of the table, if you will, is Roman Reigns. I get it. We were talking about with, the Great Khali business-wise, why it makes sense that Roman keeps getting shoved down our throat. However, the reason why people started to boo Roman Reigns has nothing to do with him as a wrestler. He's actually a fantastic wrestler for the type of wrestler that he is. Perfect. He's a great looking guy. Every girl that I have known in my entire life who has seen a picture of Roman Reigns, immediately the room gets a little bit more humid. He's got that going for him. Kids love him. Any live event I've ever been to, where, Roman Reigns is headlining and whatnot, the house shows, kids go wild for him. It's just that the male demographic, we rejected him, put myself in there because I'm wearing the Daniel Bryan shirt. is because a couple years back when, everybody was getting behind Daniel Bryan, he was the guy with the it factor. And it just seemed like the storytelling was, we'll have him start the card, whatever. Like he'll lose to Sheamus in 5 seconds. He'll get into some, non-beef with Jinder Mahal or something like that, we're just not going to care about. And it's just like, no, we want more from him. It's kind of like Eddie Guerrero, where people were salivating for him to be the champion. It's just like, no, this is the guy we want. We don't want the year before all this, it was Batista. They were Boo-Tistaing him at, the Royal Rumble. It wasn't the guy the fans wanted, the people's champ, if you will, was Daniel Bryan. And when, Roman was, placed into that spot, they weren't booing him necessarily as a character. They were booing the storytelling. And that just kind of followed him because management or, the writers or Vince, they weren't listening. They just kept saying, nope, Roman's going to be the guy. Roman's going to be a guy. We're going to have him go up against Triple H and beat him. He's going to be the guy. We're still going to boo him. We're going to have him go up against the Undertaker, make him go out on his back, retire the Undertaker, if you will. Nope, we're going to boo him because, so they just keep hating on him. And they never, like John Cena, they never turned him heel. And in order for people to love you, they have to be hated. Check out his cousin right here, The Rock. He was hated. There was a chance of die, Rocky, die, until he turned heel in the Nation of Domination, and people absolutely loved him. They love an asshole. That's how Stone Cold got over, is because he was a bad guy. He was flipping off, Bret Hart, who was the guy. And so the fans want to boo him, but not because they hate Joseph Anoa'i. They hate the character that's being shoved down their throats. So this WrestleMania is perfect. And the fact that they inserted Daniel Bryan, because in my opinion, when I fantasy book, WrestleManias every single year, the perfect story to tell for this WrestleMania is Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan, knowing that the fans, we know the behind the stage comings and goings and whatnot. And then on screen, they both have chemistry. So, when I'm fantasy booking, during Corona times, I'm thinking like the perfect main event for WrestleMania would be Roman and Daniel Bryan, and have them tell the story of the reason why these fans are booing me is because of your little ass or something like that. And then Daniel Bryan saying like, well, if you were doing your job right, they wouldn't boo, cut that promo. And then, I love it. Mm-hmm. I checked out of wrestling for a while, in the mid 2000s. It got a little, I wanted a girlfriend more than I wanted to watch wrestling on Monday nights. Right. So, I checked out for a while, but the last wrestler I remember loving was Edge. And I remember actually crying a little bit when he had to retire. And that's when I started to check out more. It was like, okay, well, Edge isn't going to be there now. So, fuck, what's there really to get excited about anymore? So having him there too, it seems a little weird. It was weird when he won the Rumble, but I like it in the fact because I'm one of those fans where I'm not going to complain about what's in front of me, because I know, or I hope when WWE does this, when they book in the future, there's no better storytelling in the world. I don't care who you are, Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino, but having a program where, let's face it, Roman Reigns is probably going to retain the title, and having a program with Daniel Bryan and Edge coming out of WrestleMania, those are always the most sketch times because, the storytelling is so wobbly. But here is a scenario where you can have two fantastic wrestlers, two of the best of all time. They don't need the belt to be successful or to tell a great story. You can have Roman win it and then start a new feud with somebody else. But then you have Edge and Daniel Bryan right after Mania. They start a program. It would be beautiful.
It's interesting to think about the symmetry between all three of those guys involved in that event too. Obviously, Edge, premature retirement. Daniel Bryan had to prematurely retire. Both are back. Roman Reigns had to kind of retire for the reasons of having to go chemotherapy. So all these guys have had to overcome some sort of adversity to continue their career, and now they're all in a main event with each other and headlining night 2, which I would say is probably the main event of the main events between the two nights, now that we are in this 2-night formula for WrestleMania. So that's a really cool story, and I hope that the WWE took advantage in storytelling on that one. Other notable matches on the card, the other title for the other brand there, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. Now, Drew kind of got shortchanged last year. His big opportunity to dethrone the beast that was Brock Lesnar was stalled because of the COVID pandemic. Didn't have the opportunity to really have fans in the stands. And I think the WWE would probably tell you that the matches that struggled the most in that WrestleMania last year were the ones that weren't the out of stadium theatrical ones, the actual matches, without the crowd reaction, I feel like it's just so hard to tell a story. And especially with those two and talk about, Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre's styles, it's just so hard to not have those shock reactions. A year later, Drew McIntyre's back here with that same opportunity. And then you have Bobby Lashley, who's currently the champion. And I've been watching a lot of shoot interviews from guys like Bruce Pritchard, Jim Ross, talking about Bobby Lashley. And it's interesting as someone who kind of also checked out of wrestling for a minute myself, to see him in that main event, the Battle of the Billionaires, Donald Trump, Vince McMahon, 2007. Apparently why he walked away from WWE is because he felt he wasn't getting the proper payday for the guy who drove the main event, the guy who brought all the money in, even though he was technically more in the middle of the show. They had the celebrity element to it. Bobby Lashley, he's back here. He's the champion. He's gained his respect within the WWE that he probably felt he deserved. Who do you see them going with in this match?
Oh, see, this is one that I've kind of struggled with because I'm always fantasy booking, as any good Mark should do. Because I'm always looking, okay, what are they going to do for the next few pay-per-views? And, now they got to prove to NBC because all of WWE's content is on the Peacock app now. So Drew, like you said, he had a fantastic run as the WWE champion. Unfortunately, it was during Corona times. He won it during, the beginning of Corona, and he carried it through pretty much the entirety of the pandemic. And he did a fantastic job, given the fact that there was no fans in the crowd, no fans in the audience to respond off to. And that's most of the fun. Like when you're cutting promos and whatnot, responding from the chants that the fans make. Stone Cold Steve Austin's perfect example, the whole what? And he didn't have that, but he was not, in my opinion, knocking it out of the park, both in the ring, on the mic. And you kind of feel bad for the guy because one of the people that, grew up watching the product and had dreams of, becoming the champion. And here's your one shot as a champion. And it's during the pandemic. So that sucks. And, if he wins it and then goes on to, because WrestleMania is going to be the first time in a very long time that there's going to be fans in attendance. It'd be great to have him have that win back and go on and be champion for a little bit. But then Bobby Lashley, you said it perfectly. One of those people that was very underappreciated, kind of like the Titus O'Neil, where it's just like this beast of a dude, a legit athlete. He fought in Bellator. Speaking of, former, wrestlers that went off and, went into real sports, he went into Bellator and did damn good. I mean, and the guy's built like a brick shit out. He's just a phenomenal specimen of a man. So he, going off of like what Vince likes, these big muscular guys, he's the perfect person to hold your title. And a couple of years ago, there was this whole, thing where it's just like, hey, WWE has not had very many black champions at the top, WWE champions. Had The Rock, who was half black, and then, Kofi Kingston ends up winning it, during that, uproar. But Bobby Lashley wins it, and he's very much a deserving black champion. He's everything you would want in a champion. And my hope would be is that, if Bobby Lashley wins, is that him and Brock Lesnar have a program. Because here you got two legit athletes, both two legit MMA athletes, both, UFC, Bellator, college champions, and, legit wrestling. That story just writes itself, two monsters just going at each other. We got Godzilla and King Kong, in theaters right now. This is the real shit right here. Like this feud with Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar just writes itself. So it depends on what they want to sell the Peacock network. Personally, I kind of want Bobby Lashley to win because I want that matchup. I saw Drew versus Brock, but we've never gotten Bobby versus Brock. So I'm shooting for Bobby, but it all depends on what Brock is doing. Because right now, Brock, as of right now, he does not have a contract with anybody right now. He's totally retired.
It's funny. People obviously give Vince McMahon a lot of shit for not giving the little guys the opportunities to hold the big titles. But it makes sense when you really think about it. Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar holding the belt, your most dynamic athletes being at the top. Because when you talk about suspension of disbelief, you look at these guys, that looks like a champion, right? In a sport that has no weight classes or age limits. Yeah, you look at a Bobby Lashley like, yeah, he can believably hold the belt. Also on this card, we have a little bit of a celebrity element, a couple celebrities involved here. Bad Bunny looks like he has a match with The Miz. Poor Miz goes from headlining a WrestleMania with Cena to, I think, obviously going to take that out against Bad Bunny here in WrestleMania 37, as anyone who books these celebrity matches would know. We have Logan Paul not directly involved in a match, even though I would assume he's probably going to get in the ring at some point in there. He's going to be in Sami Zayn's corner against Kevin Owens. Wonder if we're going to get a little bit of Jake Paul mixed in there too. I know Jake has his matchup against, who's he going against next? Okay, Ben Askren. A lot of people are favoring Jake in that one, but imagine Logan's going to have some sort of element there. So get those to headline the card. What else do we got on here? Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair. I've been a little bit tuned out, so I haven't paid too much attention, but this continued revolution of women's wrestling that they continue to do. I know Sasha Banks has been one of their better performers for the last few years. She's related to Snoop Dogg, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it's the cousin. Her actual real name, I believe, is Snoop Dogg's father. The last name escapes me, but yeah, Sasha Banks, when it's all said and done, talk about Hall of Fame careers. She's going to go down as one of the greatest female wrestlers of all time. Top 3, probably. Just her work is fantastic. I mentioned Eddie Guerrero earlier. She's very heavily influenced by Eddie Guerrero. And wow, what a great inspiration to have. And then Bianca Belair. Talk about athletes. Anybody who is not a wrestling fan and wants to appreciate the athleticism of these athletes, just check out a Bianca Belair match. She's called the EST because she's the fastest, the strongest, the biggest, or whatever. And she truly is. I mean, watching her is just like, oh shit, like. Yeah, this is athleticism right here. This is not no geek off the street. So I anticipate that being one of those potential matches that might just steal the show. Everybody's looking, at the top of the card, but there's every WrestleMania, there's always one match that steals the show. And I think Sasha versus Bianca Belair has a potential to steal the show right there.
And it's cool for the WWE that they are in a spot where a female performer can steal the show, like they have had with Sasha, like they've had with Charlotte. Becky Lynch, Asuka is also on night 2 there. So yeah, I mean, it's really impressive what they've done in that turning around the women's division, because in a sport or sports entertainment thing that's so based in storytelling, being able to tell these stories with the women, it's not something that was an impossibility. It just WWE never really committed to doing it. And now that they started the whole let the divas work, or now it's just the women's division. It's been really good. It's been fun, and we've seen a lot of great characters come out of it. Speaking of great characters, one of my personal favorites is on this card as well, The Fiend. I really grown fond of the Fiend character. Obviously, I mentioned Undertaker is one of my favorite characters of all time. I like that supernatural element in my characters. He managed to get Alexa Bliss in his corner. I actually have to kind of look more into that. I didn't see a lot of the buildup with that storytelling. I've seen little bits and pieces of the promos there, but I've always kind of seen Alexa Bliss. I could see it. I could see it there with
the crazy chick
and everything. Yeah. But this is kind of a good callback match, as Randy Orton obviously was very involved with the Wyatt family when that was still a storyline. So to see that here in WrestleMania 37, last year with WrestleMania 36, what they did with The Fiend burying John Cena, I wonder if this storyline is going to have similar type value. It's not a Firefly Funhouse match, but I could see them moving in some sort of supernatural elements into this one as well.
I would love that if that happened, if John Cena in some way got involved, because he's been very quiet, suspiciously quiet, for a card, like you said, doesn't really have a lot of big names on it. WWE has a way of surprising you with, things like that. For example, the WrestleMania that I went to in Santa Clara, your San Francisco 49ers arena over there, Hulk Hogan, the whole N.W.O, they came out for the Triple H and Sting match. That wasn't advertised at all, but, we got to see that. Ronda Rousey, that's where she made her debut. She wasn't advertised for that.
So a year later, huh? I mean, coming back from the Firefly Zone, is that what they kind of would sell it as?
Maybe, something, because with The Fiend, it's he always, anybody he has a feud with, he always reverts people back to their original self. So, I mean, I would even be there if it was John Cena comes back as the prototype, or if he comes back as, the rapper or whatever. Just something humorous, but just at the same time, John Cena is kind of like the Roman Reigns before Roman Reigns, where you had fun booing him, but now that he's been gone for quite some time, we kind of miss him because he had that magic on the mic, and he always brought that it factor to any match that he was in. So I wouldn't mind seeing it, especially there being that history with him and Randy Orton as well. I think, don't quote me on this, guys, but I'm pretty sure, like I've heard somebody say, or Michael Cole say this, a few times, no other two people have gone at each other for the title more than Randy Orton and John Cena have. So that'd be interesting to see if he gets involved somehow, between the Fiend and him. But even if not, the story that they're telling there with, the Alexa Bliss, being crazy and, kind of bringing him back, it has been fun to see. And especially during these COVID times where there's no audience members, so where everything's kind of like, the groundlings, where it's just like a performance in front of an audience, where they can do special effects in the ring because, they can do multiple shots and whatnot. So I do like the stories that they've been telling with Alexa Bliss and Randy with the absence of the Fiend, just having this Fiend as this hovering character. And now he's back kind of like as this burnt to the crisp, to reference Kane again. He kind of looks like, Kane unmasked that right now. But I totally, I'm there for it. And this is speaking as a person that does not find joy in Randy Orton's matches at all. So this is one thing that I am looking forward to be honest.
Oh, come on. Randy's had some bangers over the years. Not here and there. It could be hit or miss, but I think his style, if people talk about John Cena with the 5 moves of doom, yeah, Randy Orton kind of has a similar thing going on. But I feel like with that aggressive approach, that heel style, even when he has been a face, he's still wrestled like a heel. We never even broke out the wrestling thesaurus for everyone that's listening to. Heel, obviously bad guy, baby face, good guy, kayfabe, fake, just but I think it's always fun to talk about this stuff because even though I'm not like actively involved, actively participating in the community, I'll turn on for a big event. It's going to be a little tough now with the whole Peacock thing you mentioned as well. I never thought I would shell out money for the NBC network because everyone was talking to a couple of years ago whenever The Office got announced it was moving to the NBC streaming platform. Rolled my eyes. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm just not watching The Office then anymore, watching old episodes. But here we are, NBC, you finally got your way. You finally broke us. And I guess, Peacock it is. I guess we'll watch some of that. Apparently, they're going to have a lot of live sports on there. So if you're a big fan of the Premier League or the NHL product as well, Peacock apparently is going to be the place to be. WWE Network. It was a good run while it lasted, but RIP. Now that really saves me the trouble of having to cancel you so I don't keep getting hit with that on my debit card because I've been too lazy to do that post WrestleMania.
And here's the thing too, is that WWE Network was like $9.99 and Peacock's going to be $4.99. So you get, not only do you get the WWE Network at a discount, but then you get all this other stuff too. So you can continue to watch The Office. You can look at me, I'm like I'm fucking promoting the Peacock Network. But
you are a NBC shill, my friend.
Yeah, I still watch Saturday Night Live. I kid. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, what? Every now and then they'll release a good skit. It's just like a once in a blue moon. Peacock, it is what it is. $4.99. I kind of wonder though with that how much they're going to scrub old school Attitude Era WWE stuff because I heard that might be in the cards.
It already is.
Them like taking out some of the more risque products, and that's like one of the things that is a little bit of a bummer when you do look at the WWE Network. It still had all that stuff in there despite being a PG platform.
Correct. Yeah, even the Chris Benoit stuff was still on there. I was watching that like not too long ago. One of my cousins was asking me about Chris Benoit and what made him go off the rails, and I was like, let me show you some matches where he gets smashed over the head with a chair a few times. And so, all that stuff was on there, and, apparently that's being taken off. A lot of racially sensitive stuff is being taken off and whatnot. And I'm the type of person where it's just like, I get both sides of the argument, where I get where NBC is coming from, where it's just like, hey, these are the times now, we got to be on the right side of history. But at the same time, I mean, that is history, maybe do like Disney where, before, they show Peter Pan or something like that has some racially insensitive stuff. They put a disclaimer on there like, hey, this was made during a certain time in history where Jerry Springer was family television, and, this no longer reflects what we are as a company now, but, for historical context, we're leaving it here. maybe do something like that. But I mean, I don't own the rights to it, so I can't dictate how they do it. I mean, that stuff still lives on YouTube and, you know, the underground, you know, wrestling forums. There's still videos of that stuff. So I mean, that stuff, I mean, it still exists. And, you know, as long as the Men in Black don't come down and erase our memories, we're still gonna have it around. So.
Oh yeah, I still have vivid memories of Mickie James doing the V-lick at WrestleMania 22. Mickie James will always be one of my celebrity crushes, man. No matter how far I go. Yeah, you too?
Yes.
That your diva crush? And she's still actively competing, right?
Yes, she is actually. Yeah.
Good for you, Mickie.
We
Dropping.
love you
Can
over
I
there.
slide in those DMs? Get you on the pod. I
Nick,
promise.
might
I have
something to say
the
about that.
only appropriate intentions here of strictly podcast purposes because,
Well,
yeah, my
gonna
my
be a
sliding in
good
DM
sell.
strategy otherwise is not as confident.
That's gonna be a good salesman pitch because with a name like a Slumpbuster.
Hey. You know, it's funny, actually, I'm wearing the shirt because with our current logo and everything like that. But hey, you know, we got that fire intro drop a few weeks ago, and it's been really sending out the video as well.
There you go.
Hey, Bust the Slump. It's so flexible. Now we got great partners. If you need to increase your confidence in the bedroom, bluechew.com. Jacob, just saying.
There you go.
Promo code Slump. Don't be a chump. Use promo code Slump.
How much will
Manscaped.com.
that get me off?
Basically, ball trimmers and boner pills. We got you covered.
There you go.
All right. All right. Well, Jacob, obviously, it's been great having you on. We love having you guys on. I've been on yours. Art and Jacob Do America. Go ahead and drop all the proper plugs so people know where to find you and what stuff you guys are working on currently, because obviously you're not just a sports show. You kind of mix it up.
Oh yeah, we're a mixed bag, if you will. So a cornucopia, as I like to say. So if you want to follow us, see what we're doing, you know, day to day, week to week, you know, check out all the social medias at Art and Jacob Do America, except for Twitter. We are at Art and Jacob Do A1. A1 steak sauce, get at me so we can get some of that sponsorship, man. A1, that's how a steak is done. The promo writes itself right there, baby. So also too, you know, we do have a Patreon as well that you can subscribe to, where, you know, you donate $1, you know, you get a bonus episode every single week. And 9 times out of 10, those episodes have been more fire than the actual free episodes that you get, you know, in your Apple podcast stream. So, you know, so check us out there. We got a merch store at tpublic.com. Just search for Art and Jacob Do America, where we got some good shit coming down the pipeline. We got some Alex Jones inspired designs coming in there. So some nice comedy for that ass, you know, you can walk down the street with. But yeah, you know, check us out there. We're official members of the Podbelly Network. So if you like our fucking Dog and Pony show, there's some other great podcasts on there. A few friends came together like butt cheeks and we made that shit happen. So check that out. Fuck, you know, just keep doing what you're doing, man. We love the Slumpbuster podcast over here at Art and Jacob Do America. So we got to collaborate again.
We will. It will happen. We'll have Art and Jacob on the podcast at one point here soon. But guys, if you want to stay tuned for that eventual episode, you got to hit that subscribe button. You got to follow us at Slumpbuster Podcast on IG. Come for the memes. Stay for the pod at Slumpbuster Pod on Twitter. As mentioned earlier, come on, don't be a chump. Use promo code SLUMP, whether it be cavemancoffeeco.com, whether it be bluechew.com, whether it be manscaped.com. Save yourself a whole lot of money. Remember, stay safe, happy, and healthy, and we'll see you on the next one.